I'll attack your planeswalker with my Gandalf.
Magic wasn't always like this.
I played Teferi's Protection.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It used to be much
It's from a commander set.
worse. Magic the Gathering has an estimated 50 million players. It was once a small indie game picked up by Wizards of the Coast, and now is the main cash cow keeping Hasbro afloat. Hasbro, you know, of Monopoly fame. But Magic has come a long way from being the game you play in between other games. And I'll tell you a bit about its salad days, and we'll even replay the first ever finals from the day it was released. But first, I need to tell you about the game that Richard Garfield, the inventor of Magic, completely ripped off to make the game we now love. It's his own game. He ripped off his own game. I needed to find a way for you to stick through the 4 seconds of our logo. So Richard Garfield loved games. He made a lot of them. He made a Clue-like game inspired by D&D where you followed a fixed goal down a set of monster-defended rooms. And then he made the 5 Magics. There was 5 colors of magic divided into different geographical areas, and they'd each have their own properties and identities, and this might ring a bell. Our story starts here. Richard tried to sell a game called Robo Rally to a small indie developer, Wizards of the Coast, who did not yet own Dungeons & Dragons. Robo Rally is a lovely game, and I recommend trying it, but at the time, WotC said it was just too expensive for them and they had to pass. It was risky and had too many game pieces. What we would like is a small, compact game that people can play during the downtime at gaming conventions. Remember, this is before people had Arena on their phones, and someone sitting on the toilet could just dunk on someone who spent all their rare wildcards on a really cool deck. So Richie G ran back to his games laboratory, set to create something to distract people who were waiting in lines at a time where I Spy with My Little Eye was literally blockbuster level entertainment. So he took his game 5 Magics and applied it to collectible, color-themed cards, allowing people to build decks that would represent them, kind of like the way a BuzzFeed quiz would. He then delved deep and got inspired by Stratomatic Baseball, a math-based game that could change every time you played it since you had to draft your players based on last year's baseball stats. Richard loved the replayability aspect of the game, so he took out the worst part, the baseball, and applied the part he liked to his 5 color-based card game. Originally, the game would have been between 2 wizards who would randomly split a pile of 120 cards into 2 decks. And then they would use them to play against each other again and again until one player got tired of playing. And the way he would ensure that no one would ever get tired of playing is by adding a simple mechanic that would make every game different. Gambling. Taking inspiration from Playground Marbles, every game would start with each player randomly putting 1 card aside, and then whoever would win would use the 5-finger discount and just take their opponent's card and add it to their deck. This is slightly similar to the game of Battle with vanilla 52-card plain decks. After some stunt dummy testing, Richard took out some of the sillier rules and brought the game back to the developers who loved it. And as a quick skippable aside, I'll tell you about some of the rules Richard had to take out after some bad playtester Yelp reviews. Walls could attack. Now they cannot, because they are walls. If you take damage from a wall, you attacked yourself. They removed this frustrating rule that if you lost all lands of one color, you also subsequently lost all permanents of that color along with any glimmer of hope of ever winning that game. And my favorite, cards like Control Magic and Steal Artifact would literally steal artifact. Someone could go, oh, I like that Black Lotus. It would go really well in this deck that I have at home, and then they would just tap 4 lands. And this part of the rules was so upsetting that people would sometimes destroy their own creatures or deal themselves lethal damage before having to give away a card. This was not fun. This is also why the first copy of Control Magic reads gain control of target creature until the game ends. Now that they had fixed the game, they unleashed it onto the world, and holy cannoli, this game was addictive. Wizards of the Coast was pretty sure about Magic the Gathering, so they did what was considered to be a large print run for an unproven game at the time. But they sold out that print run the weekend it released. Then they released a second printing of the game, now called Beta, and it also sold out immediately. Stores were fighting for this product. So WotC greenlit a semi-constant print run, now called Unlimited, and sold 10 million cards in the first 3 months. Unlimited is a white-bordered version of the cards, and the reason a white-bordered Black Lotus is 15,000 euro, whilst an alpha black-bordered Lotus is 100,000. There was only 1,100 of those ever printed, and only Colossal Dreadmaw knows how many of those are left today. That first set was completely sold out at Gen Con 1993, the convention where they debuted the game. The lineup to buy Magic cards held all weekend long, and people played and traded on the floor and gaming areas. And on the very last day, the first ever Magic the Gathering tournament was held. Players brought the creation that they had been working on for the last 4 days and then geeked out to win a t-shirt, a plaque, and a booster box. And we almost know how the final of that first tournament went. Someone actually wrote down the play-by-play. Unfortunately, the quality of their handwriting precedes them because all we know is that their name is Kyle and that the report was so illegible that after reading Bong Water Propane instead of Bogwraith played, WotC staffers apparently just chose to scrap the entire report. All we know is a handful of the cards that were in each decks, but we did our best to reassemble them as closely as possible, and we're gonna head down to the feature match to give you a glimpse of what that match could have looked like. Dot? Welcome to the 90s. You probably have a Tamagotchi to feed. A blueberry is a fruit, and your outfit was actually cool back then.
Hey, it's cool right now.
It is. Mulligans were different. Back then, if you reveal a hand and you had 0 lands or only lands, you would get a free mulligan, which is what I'll do now.
That was the only way you got a mulligan.
Yes, if you only had 1 land, you were toast.
I have land. I have to keep. There's no decision.
This is keepable. You may go first.
Right, you don't even have to put a card back. It was just free.
It was just free. You just draw another 7.
I'll play a mountain. And I kid you not, 1 out of 2 goblins. This is a Mons Goblin Raiders. It's a 1/1. And the only other goblin is Goblin King.
Yeah, they combo together.
Yes, but if you wanted to do a goblin deck, this is what you got.
No, there was no restriction.
You had many of them.
If you found 40 Goblin Kings, you could put them in your deck.
Good luck finding Goblin Kings.
I will draw. And I see your 1/1 for 1, and I will raise you a 1/1 flying for 1 in my script sprites. I'll pass a turn.
Not to mention, we played this with sleeves. People back then didn't want to, they just didn't have the concept of sleeves. It was just cards.
You didn't know the cards would be valuable yet.
Yeah, remember some of the board games you have at home, you play without sleeves.
Also, these decks were at the first ever Magic tournament at the first day Magic was released. Sleeves probably didn't exist yet.
I'm gonna play a swamp, and then this is the combo. I'm gonna come out strong by Dark Ritual.
Eee, that is a good Magic card.
Yeah, people noticed already back then that more mana is better. Now I have 3 black mana, and I'm gonna tap a 4th to play the biggest creature, the baddest of them all. It's the Juggernaut. I explained to you what the card does, and it might sound underwhelming, but this was strong.
Back in the day, this was banned for power level. Unironically.
Imagine this. It's a 4 mana 5/3. You say, what's the upside? No. It has to attack each turn, but it can't be blocked by walls. Which finally was, it was very good. There was
a lot of walls.
Wall of ice and stuff, which could block it.
Also, the super fun thing about this is I think it was good because people were bad at Magic back then because it wasn't all so much theorizing, and forcing someone to attack every turn is basically forcing them to make the correct choice.
I see. But then again, it dies to lightning bolt.
Yes.
Lightning bolt.
And disenchant, which was very popular back then.
Anyway, my goblin wants to give you a massage.
Ooh, it's really good at it.
Right?
That was nice. Okay, now, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I need to come up with a way to beat that Juggernaut. I will start off with a Birds of Paradise, the card that created the expression Bolt the Bird. It's a 0/1 flying, and it taps to add 1 mana of any color to my mana pool.
Fun fact, that is not the image for Birds of Paradise.
This is the image for Volcanic Island.
Correct. It had too many birds on it.
And they're like, why did you put a big old bird in front of my Volcanic Island? So they came up with an iconic card. And to protect it from your removal spells, I'm gonna play a super powerful card called Black Ward. It's an enchantment that this creature gains protection from black.
I'm
Take it.
enormously impressed.
And now I'm kind of in trouble, so I'll pass the turn.
But your bird has protection from black.
Yes, the small victories are the ones that matter.
It's definitely a small victory. Counting your total strength and toughness, you can't beat a Juggernaut. I'm playing an unholy strength.
Fun fact about this, you see the pentagram in the back? In subsequent sets, they just remove the pentagram because they were too afraid of the satanic vibes that Magic the Gathering was bringing to their children.
I don't want to. It hurts my soul, but I have to. I'm gonna attack with.
You didn't think we'd be here right now, except we are, since it's forcing you to attack. I want to get to enough toughness to know my game plan. I wanted to assemble 3 powering creatures, but Unholy Strength is too strong because now I don't think I can get to 4 quick enough. I'll take, whoa, that's 8 damage?
This was a live clip out of the 90s. This is how people reacted. And then I'll play a swamp. Go.
No, you don't even have a follow-up.
No. Literally everything I have is on the table.
It's funny because we don't know how it went down, but we know that these decks are from the first ever Magic tournament to ever be played on the day the game was released. So it could have happened like this.
I don't even know half your cards.
In my effort to stay alive, I will play a giant spider, which back then was crazy powerful. Because it's a 2/4 for 4, it can block creatures with flying, so it has reach. But the way they used to word it was, does not fly, but can block flying creatures.
Alpha and most of the Earthings were a lot of, I'll just explain what it does. You'll get it.
According to Richard Garfield, one of the most fun things in the game was to just have a ruling that no one really knows what it does and debate it amongst your friends.
For example, we had Regenerate. We just took it from our graveyard and put it into play because it's regenerating.
That's what I mean.
It needed to die, so it comes back. Only like a year later in my Magic life, I realized not how Regenerate works.
And to settle debates in the Duelist magazine back then, you had people who would write in a column being like, my friends and I can't agree how brain geyser works. Could you please answer this X question? And then have a column with all the questions. In the meantime, I hope this is potentially enough for me to survive.
It's not.
Wait, what? I'll pass the turn.
Oh, Jesus.
I will just attack with my Juggernaut.
That's for 7 damage.
It is? Your turn.
Time to find an answer to that unholy Juggernaut. Ah, that's vaguely an answer. I'll play another Script Sprites, because they're incredibly powerful. And then I'll spend 2 mana for a very unfun Magic the Gathering card. Because back then, people didn't care about fun quite as much. It's Circle of Protection Red. It's an enchantment. And if I pay 1, I prevent all damage against you from 1 red source. If a source does damage to you more than once this turn, you must pay 1 mana each time to prevent that damage. So every time there's damage pointed to me from a red source, I can say no.
Was there a stack back then?
It was the batch.
The what?
The batch. So it was kind of like a stack, but damage resolved first, and then everything resolved at the same time. So once you agreed on your batch, it just happened. You couldn't like wait for something to resolve and then go sneak in some more spells.
So if I have a lightning bolt, can I deal 3 damage to you?
It's on the batch. Yes, successfully batched. I can't even, normally, I'd have 4 power to defeat your Juggernaut, and I'd be like, nah, Thoralf's not gonna attack. Pass the turn.
Oh, I have to attack.
You do!
But there is a Circle of Protection Red, which is problematic. I'll play a mountain. Those lands are beautiful. And yeah, I'm not gonna attack, so I'll attack.
Even the Goblin's getting in.
I mean, it's lethal.
Yes, I'll block it with a spider and throw scripts right in front of the endless killing machine. Even the art is so much scarier. Why does it have a face? Your Goblin dies.
Aw, we loved him. So, I've noticed your life total is 1.
So have I. It's been worrying me ever since.
I'm gonna cast Disintegrate on you for 1.
For 1.
So, there's also a lot of D&D, Dungeons & Dragons influence. Disintegrate deal X damage to 1 target. If target dies, this turn is removed from game entirely and cannot be regenerated. There it is again, regenerate. Return the target to its owner's deck only when the game is over.
Just to make sure. Disintegrate, you might take it as I'm destroying your cards.
So I would like to deal you 1 damage.
This is a fun game, so I'd like you to not do that. Because I'll pay with Circle of Protection Red with my Birds of Paradise and prevent the damage from that.
Unfortunately, I have another lightning bolt.
This is the 90s, so I'd probably say something like Cowabunga. Well, that was a stampede. Turns out nothing at the time could beat a satanic wheelbarrow. But the game has had a lot of Poke evolutions since that one original match, even in its first year. Magic was meant for a casual audience to slowly collect some cards that shared a color, but some silly heads thought they could do better than chase the high of the mad combo between playing a Goblin King with a Mons Goblin Raiders on the board. Some wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was. Dum, dum, dum. They also didn't want to get sued. Wizards of the Coast quickly realized that tournament Magic had a problem. Richard Garfield made the rules vague by design, thinking that part of the fun would be debating with your friends how the cards interacted with each other. But when there's a plaque and a t-shirt on the line, we need some guiding principles. They created the Duelist Convocation, later called the DCI when it was a Duelist Convocation International. To players like me that remember the DCI, this is your reminder that it's your bedtime soon. The Duelist Convocation Local was tasked with coming up with a rule set that would be established for the first ever World Championships at Gen Con 1994, 1 year after the first ever t-shirt tournament. First of all, they made it so that you could only play 4 of each card. That way, no one could roll up with 30 Black Lotus, 29 Ancestral Recall, and 1 Fireball. They then made a standardized rule book stating that players could play a minimum of 60 cards, but could have a 15-card sideboard from which they could switch cards from between games. And then they started banning cards. People complain about how the bans are handled now, but the rules committee had to learn to slither before they evolved some legs because there was 6 ban announcements in 7 months. And some of them were just confusing. Like how alongside restricting Black Lotus to 1 card, they also restricted Ali from Cairo. Its effect is strong, sure, but that creature just dies if you shuffle too hard. The World Championships would eventually be broadcasted on ESPN, but back then, the internet was in its infancy and information on what people would play at the event was scant. Anyone who would show up could play, and it was single elimination, so as soon as you lost a match, you had to pack up your unsleeved Magic cards and call your dad so he can pick you up in his minivan. There is no footage of that tournament, but we'll pull the drawstring on the Cardmarket time machine and give you a glimpse at what the finals of that first World Championship looked like. Because Magic didn't make any sense back then, I will start with a Taiga, which taps for 2 colors of mana. And a Mox Jet. Woo! That's a Mox. But it doesn't pay for anything in my deck, I think.
You can't use black mana?
I think there's one Demonic Tutor in my aggro deck.
It's free, it makes mana.
And you think, Carl, what are you gonna do with this crazy huge upgrade and advantage you got in the first turn? I'm gonna play an Argothian Pixies. It's a 2/1 for 2 mana. But this is a secret tech, and this is cool because this is one of the first time people ever metagamed in Magic the Gathering. Juggernaut was the main way to kill people. And this Argothian Pixies is a 2/1 that cannot be blocked by artifact creatures, and any damage dealt to it by an artifact creature is reduced to 0. Go. What is that face?
Nothing. So you say creatures are bad. Let me tell you why non-creatures are awesome.
Oh.
I play a land. No, it's just not any land. It's probably the best land ever.
Printed.
It says tap, draw a card. You say, what's the downside? It also makes mana. So it's not even like you can't make mana. Your restriction is you have to have 7 cards in your hand. I have 7 cards.
See, one of the things is, if you look at that for the first time, you're like, how can that be that good? You maybe activate it once. But as long as you're spending 1 spell per turn and drawing 1 card per turn, you can just keep on having 7 card hands perpetually.
The games are slow. Removal spells are cheap. Drawing a card a turn is pretty strong. I'll draw a card. Now I have 8 cards.
Oh no.
Which is unfortunate. Luckily, there's a lot of things that cost 0. For example, this Black Lotus.
You drew it?
I mean, why not? It's a good card.
That's how you choose to draw your cards in Magic. Back then, Richard Garfield wanted you to just make decks with whatever cards you had laying around. They realized that people can buy cards. So if you buy the cards you want and if you have enough money, you could add, I don't know, 20 Black Lotus in your deck. So you could only have one of these and one of these in your deck. Some cards are restricted.
Yes.
In 1994. The last game we played, 1993, whatever you found, was fine.
Also, in that time, I just played a Black Lotus, which, I mean, still back then was the best card. They knew it, what good it was. I will use it for blue mana, and I will play an Old Man of the Sea, which is not a card you should cast with your mana of Black Lotus, but that's what they have. 2/3 for 3 mana. Can you see the third mana?
It's hard to see.
Back then, printing was also a challenge. I can tap it to gain control of a creature. I will read it literally. This is fun. Tap to gain control of a creature with power no greater than Old Man's power. If Old Man becomes untapped, not Old Man of the Sea, just Old Man, you lose control of this creature. You may choose not to untap Old Man as normal. It's very rude. Also, look at the picture. He's just carrot chopping, with his knees. You also lose control of the creature if Old Man dies or if the creature's power becomes greater than Old Man's. Fantastic. They didn't find the space because there's so much text. They even had, if they could have written Old Man of the Sea.
Space at the bottom, yes.
But this is what I've cast for my Black Lotus.
So you can seal something that has 2 power.
Or less.
That's gonna have to go.
Go.
Yeah, like this is going to have to. But first, I'm gonna attack you for 2 with this. Oh, it doesn't fly? They're sprites. Why don't they fly? I'm not gonna attack you for 2 with this sprites. It's terrible. Your 2/3 blocker is taking out my whole game plan because my follow-up is to play a land that becomes a 2/2.
Strong.
And a monkey that becomes a 2/3. Because Curd Ape is just a 1/1 that becomes a 2/3 if you control a forest.
You do?
I do.
Oh, the combo. Tiger, Curd Ape.
But how am I ever gonna beat this silly old man?
Oh, you don't.
I'll pass a turn.
Draw. Now, I have 7 cards.
Okay, we've all heard this before.
Bling! Do you know the feeling when you just have too much to do? Can I tap this as an instant?
So, as Richard Garfield might have wanted, do you want to debate the rules?
I'm asking you, like, does it feel like you can just steal something?
I feel like yes.
All right. Then I'm not bothered. I'll play a Tropica Island. And then for a green, as my usual control deck flavor, I'll play a Bird of Paradise.
Yes, very control deck.
I mean, basically, it's a bad box.
A bad yeah.
Go.
I tap for any color mana. I'm gonna play City of Brass, which deals me 1 damage, as it will. I actually have no choice. Thoralf, it's gone this far. Because this old mana in the sea is too strong. I'm also then gonna tap these 2 and play a Psionic Blast. It deals 4 damage to any target, but it does 2 to me as well, because this is very on flavor for blue. 4 damage to old man in the sea.
So as a badge, I would like to steal your Curd Ape.
Okay. Old man in the sea dies?
It dies.
It's back.
I don't know if it can attack.
Unfortunately, it cannot. It has summoning sickness again. Back then, how did that work back then? I'll attack for 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna play. I got jealous of your Birds of Paradise. I'm gonna play 1 as well.
Tight.
I'm an aggro deck. I have 3 creatures. Pass the turn.
5, 6, 7.
1.
So you can already see the effect of, well, this land.
The Library of Alexandria.
I drew 3 cards for no price at all. Okay, let me, as the people back then said, pump up the jam.
They did say that.
I will play a Mox Pearl, which is free and makes a white mana. I will play a Strip Mine, which is my land and also free. Then I'm gonna cast an Ancestral Recall on myself.
You who wanted cards.
Draw 3 cards or force opponent to draw 3 cards.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
No. I eat my broccoli. I get to draw 3 cards.
You get your broccoli and get to eat it too?
Yeah.
All upside.
I'll play Time Walk.
No. You're like mono power 9. There's 9 cards in Magic called the Power 9. They're very expensive.
That card didn't used to say take an extra turn after this one, which it was changed to. It said
Target player loses next turn, which could be taken as they lose their turn, so you get an extra turn. But most people took it as they lost the game next turn.
Yeah, which is a tight clock. Now I understand.
Your turn.
So this is also the Power 9 things. Like the more you have, the more they feed each other because you get extra turns, draw cards, you know, do the whole thing. The dance, you know, living La Vida Loca.
Have your mana really, really early and really fast.
I'm gonna tap 2 mana to regrowth my Time Walk.
No. This is just mean.
I still have 8 cards. Well, let's cast the Time Walk. Hey, it's my turn, and then I'm gonna draw a card. Oh!
So this deck won the World Championships?
I imagine the same
I
question.
understand why.
Yeah, I'll play a land and a Soul Ring. Can't be a real game without a Soul Ring.
Yes.
My turn?
Famously.
My
Yes,
turn.
Pass the turn.
I'll
You
have to-
always have Soaring. Fun fact, at the time, exactly like in Commander, this was restricted to 1.
I love the 90s. It's fun. I'll draw.
You have little helicopters on your head. Spin it. Woo! Yes, that's what we came for. Now you
come for
have to subscribe.
Oh, we'll spin it again if you subscribed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Good job, it's flying away.
Got so many subscribers. I have 7 cards. I draw a card. You see why Magic was much better back then? I will show you the big payoff. I will tap 5 mana and play the one, the only Sarah Angel. 4/4 flying vigilance. Well, back then
Back then it said
it
attacking
didn't say
doesn't cause it to
vigilance.
tap.
No, this was the epiphany, the top of evolutions.
Strongest creature in Magic back then. And honestly, looking at my board, I don't know how I'll ever beat that.
And then I could play something more, but I want to keep 7 cards in my hand for drawing a card. So I'm just gonna destroy your Mishra's Factory.
No, I used that to attack.
And it's your turn.
My back's against the wall because you played a 4/4 flying angel. So I'll play a demonic tutor in my aggro deck.
What do you get? Another card?
Search my library for 1 card and take it into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. I don't even need to show you. I want this one. And now I'm gonna do what aggro decks do. Pew! I'll attack with my creatures. This one's a 2/3.
Did you demonic tutor for giant growth? I'm not gonna block with the bird, so I'm gonna block the pixies and take 2.
My pixies die. And I'll pass. Are you in a dilemma because you want to draw a card?
Yeah, no, it's just my deck is too good. Like, again, 8 cards. So before I do something relevant, I'll do something fun. I'll tap 4 mana and cast a clone.
Ooh, that could be anything.
Yes, this is what it could have said, but instead it says, upon summoning clone, acquires all normal characteristics, including color, one of the creatures in play on either side. Any enchantments on original creatures are not copied. Clone retains the characteristics even after original creature is destroyed. Clone cannot be played if there are no creatures in play. Oh, interesting. So now this is very hard to comprehend, but this just basically says could be anything.
Basically, it enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature already on the battlefield. So, Birds of Paradise may interest you in a curd ape. Oh yeah, that's the correct choice.
Well done. So now I've doubled my Sarah Angels.
You have.
I will attack you.
So I have 1 single game plan. So I don't think I'm beating 2 Sarah Angels. So Birds of Paradise is gonna block.
And then for my last trick, because you still have a creature and I don't like it, I will tap 4 to control magic equivalent.
No!
9.
My curd ape is too strong?
Yes. Control magic actually says what it does. Gain control of target creature.
So they needed a whole dictionary of synonyms worth of text for clone, but control magic is just gain control of target creature.
Fun fact, they stopped printing clones because they thought it was too complicated. And actually the image for Morphling was supposed to be a clone, but then they said, nah, it's too complicated.
And Morphling was quite strong.
Yeah.
Also, wait, is an enchantment that says gain control of target creature?
My creature.
That's not how enchantments work anymore.
I'm satisfied. I
So-
even went down under 7 cards.
How merciful of you.
I know.
I did not demonic tutor. for Giant Growth. I'm gonna play Tropical Island. I Demonic Tutored to win the game. I Demonic Tutored for a channel.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, back then they knew of this?
At the first World Championship in the world,
They had to fly away.
that said, until end of turn, you may add colorless mana to your mana pool at a cost of 1 life per 1 mana. Plays additionals as interrupts. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life.
What could you possibly do with
Basically,
mana?
I give life, I get mana. And I will pay 15 life.
So you go to 2.
I have 15 floating mana right here. And then I will go to 1
Yes.
to add 1 red
Yes.
and make that 1 red and 16 mana
Yes.
to play a Fireball! Fireball does X damage, total divided evenly, round down. Among any number of targets, pay 1 extra mana for each target beyond the first. I will not. There is 1 target.
You want to kill all of those for 5.
No. I'm targeting you and dealing you 16 damage.
I don't know how many times it actually won over the sprites, but I just assumed they're going to do that.
I assume this deck mostly won because of Channel Fireball and not because of attacking with script sprites.
Which is a good thing if nobody plays counter spells.
That is true.